Your I-24 News exclusive and a major update. We're digging now into the State Department documents that are being used to evaluate whether American taxpayers should continue to send financial aid to the Palestinian government. Our investigative correspondent, Eylon Aslan-Levy, reports on the criteria right now being scrutinized.
Anything that directly replaces services the Palestinian Authority provides its own people. That's the bottom line of the U.S. State Department criteria for slashing aid to the West Bank and Gaza. I-24 News can exclusively reveal this report submitted by the State Department to Congress in May under the Taylor Force Act. That's the law that cuts U.S. assistance to the West Bank and Gaza unless the PA stops its policy of pay for slay, paying stipends to convicted terrorists in Israeli jails and families of dead terrorists. The law says the State Department must stop all assistance to the West Bank and Gaza that directly benefits the Palestinian Authority. Here's how it defines that. Is the PA the main beneficiary of the aid? Is the PA its direct recipient? Does the aid go to the Palestinian Authority's creditors? Does the PA own or control whoever's getting the money? And is the aid directly replacing assistance or services that the Palestinian Authority is providing? In other words, the State Department is now forbidden from giving the PA cash, paying off its debts, or replacing services that it gives its people. But that definition is ambiguous. If the Secretary of State wants, he can withhold any money for education, health, or development services the PA would otherwise have to cover. And if he doesn't, he can keep the humanitarian funding tap on. The State Department is now behind the legal deadline to give Congress two more reports. One, confirming the PA is not ending pay for slay and stating the total funds to be withheld. Another, listing the projects being suspended because that money is on hold. A delay while the State Department is in chaos, in transition from Tillerson to Pompeo, with key positions left unfilled. I-24 News earlier reported U.S. funding to the West Bank and Gaza was quietly put on hold in May, months after the Taylor Force Act. But the Trump administration had already told Ramallah months earlier that the aid was under review, because the White House wants to pressure the Palestinians to accept whatever peace plan it's cooking up, and money talks. A peace plan in which the White House is expected to want to boost economic assistance with or without Taylor Force. U.S. officials aren't confirming or denying the I-24 News report that the Palestinian aid budget is on hold and that checks that should have been written haven't been sent. They're saying the assistance is under review. But an NSC spokesman warned Palestinians the Palestinian Authority can ease the Taylor Force Act restrictions by ending the abhorrent policy of inciting violence against Americans and Israelis through payments to terrorists and their families. Trump wants a deal, and the clock is ticking. Eylon Aslan-Levy, I-24 News.
And Eylon joins me now in studio. Eylon, as you reported, a lot of ambiguity in the precise definitions here. So is it possible to maybe take an educated guess based on what we know, how much money could be restored, how much would be salvaged or cut permanently? Do we know?
From what I understand, we're talking about a range that goes from anything from everything to almost nothing. These criteria are extremely ambiguous. They're clear on a few things. The U.S. won't give the Palestinian Authority money directly, won't contribute to international programs that give them cash, won't pay off their debts. But then there's this final criteria that the U.S. won't give aid that will directly replace services or assistance provided by the Palestinian Authority. And the Secretary of State can interpret that however he wants. He can say that all the humanitarian aid is providing services the Palestinian Authority would otherwise have to provide, so it gets cut, or he can decide that actually, why is America providing it? Because the PA isn't providing these services, and therefore that's accepted. But the State Department is falling behind on its legal deadlines to give Congress an update on precisely how much it's withholding.
Why
and
is
which
that? What do you make of that? The fact that it's being done in this way?
Well, look, there are a few ways to look at it. First of all, the State Department doesn't always give Congress reports on time. That's normal. Also, there has been a big leadership change inside the State Department, but I'm guessing there's a more strategic element here, because the Trump administration is now trying to pressure the Palestinians to come to the table and put that aid on review separately from the Taylor Force Act. They told them about it months before. Nothing to do with the Taylor Force Act. But the act has the potential to bind their hands in deciding how much aid is going to get cut. My understanding, they don't want to tie their own hands right now by committing to how much they're going to cut, so they can go to the Palestinians and they can say, accept our peace deal, and we'll interpret these the loosest way possible, play tough with us, and we're going to be really tough with you as well.
Eylon Levy, amazing reporting, great scoop, and I know you'll stay on top of every twist and turn.